It was a long day in the deer woods for me. Not a great ending to the story. We're going to get into that, but mostly I'm excited about tonight's guest. This guy is doing so many things in the outdoors, conservation and agriculture. He seems to be really getting it right with the approach he's taking, representing hunters, representing what I consider a lot of the real reasons we should be out there hunting today. I'm Brandon Butler.
I'm Nathan Shags McLeod.
And I'm Scott Cronin.
Welcome to the Driftwood Outdoors podcast. Now, Scott, I'm just going to tell you straight, I'm a little embarrassed. I tried checking out your profile. Today's been a hectic, crazy day running around, and it was too much. Like, I couldn't soak it all in. So how about you just give us your bio really quickly? Introduce yourself to the Driftwood Outdoors podcast listeners.
Yeah, it'll be real easy to do. My main gig every day is a high school agriculture education teacher. I do quite a bit of work to kind of build bridges with dual credit classes between Murray State University and the high school that I teach at. Along the way, I try to figure out how to hunt and fish and get in the outdoors as much as I can. And through those travels, I've been able to work with a lot of different companies and do a lot of different research. And along the way, we've just been able to figure out a way to advocate and to get more people engaged in the great outdoors. And we're doing a lot of things for both the consumptive and non-consumptive users. And so I've kind of hit a point in my life where I've aged to get past where I made my mistakes. And I'm trying to put my best foot forward each day to utilize the days ahead to do the most work that I can to help grow our sport, and more importantly, how we're looked at as hunters and anglers, to give us a positive image. I don't know if we toot our own horn enough on all the good things that we're doing, not necessarily us as individuals, but between the organizations and great partnerships. Hunters and fishermen are doing a lot to keep people fed and keep people out of trouble.
Man, amen to all that.
Yeah, truth.
So that must be a role that requires you to be an exceptional human, because Russell Graves, who's been on the podcast twice, but not in a long time, had that same job. So do you know that name at all, Scott?
I
Russell?
know. Yeah. I've listened to some of the podcasts that he's been on and some of his work. Definitely a servant to conservation and the sports that we all try to take part in, and an exceptional individual for a lot of folks to not only learn from, but look up to.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure a lot of folks feel that way about you. My daughter is a freshman at the University of Missouri, Annabelle, and she is wanting to be either an agriculture lawyer or an agriculture lobbyist. She's in pre-law, but she really credits that to her ag teacher in high school. And she just went in. Yeah, Shags has known her forever. I mean, you'd have never thought Oopsie would end up in the ag fields, right? But she's there, and I think it's really cool that that's what she's interested in. I've never worked directly in agriculture, but when I was with Raceline, we were doing a lot with prairie restoration in ag fields and anaerobic digestion of hog manure. So spent a lot of time on some major hog operations, learned a lot about cattle and dairy digesters as well. So yeah, and bringing that together with conservation was my whole purpose. So to meet someone like you and to know someone like Russell that's doing the same thing, it's like kindred spirits, man.
Yeah, man, there's so much stuff that agriculture is. It's so diverse. It takes a multitude of knowledge to kind of embrace all of it. But the wildlife and forestry sector are just as big a part of agriculture as anything. And when you look at everything that's out there on the plant science side and the business side, animal science, and how that can tie into making young people not just more self-sufficient and employable, but how it can increase their ability to be a better angler or hunter in the field. It's such a rewarding experience. Ag teachers get to spend a lot of times 4 years with kids, where another elective teacher, just a content teacher, they only have a kid for a class and they move on. And we get to build these relationships with these individuals. And a lot of times we'll spend more time with those kids than their own parents. And through those years and the projects and contests and everything, once you figure out what their interest is and you kind of get them hooked, the old bait and switch in education, where you've kind of pretty much figured out what it's going to take to get them to bite to like school, it's a win-win combination. So it's an honor to have kids that show up to school each and every day, that come to school just for the program and the content and what they're learning. I don't know if it's necessarily us as individual teachers, but there's a whole lot of kids that don't like school. And the fact that they can come to school and learn about digestion or process some deer or make their own mineral mix and teach them how to weld and build things, fabricate, whatever. I've been blessed. I've been doing it for 24 years now. So I've got 2.5 years left. I'll be retired and then move on to the conservation world and education outreach full time there.
Wow. A guy with a plan.
Something like that. Something like that. Until inflation hits, like it is right now.
Oh boy. I
Yeah,
can't even
plans go south.
imagine like trying to teach in today's kids. Cause I mean, I was a pain in the ass and I didn't have phones and all this fancy technology and tablets. And I mean, I stare at my phone all day long. I can only imagine what you have to deal with in that classroom right now.
Hey, it's all good. It's not like this has evolved in just a matter of an overnight thing. Over the years, 24 years, you kind of see what's popular and what's not, and kind of looking back over the years when there were certain people. I would always take a group of kids down to the NWTF convention at Opryland, and there's people that were just there, famous people, that people would stand in line for 2-3 hours just to get a picture and a handshake. And then I go to those same shows now, and those people are walking up and down the aisle, and young kids don't even know who they are. So it puts things in perspective as far as, how long your fame and fortune can last. But
Man,
but
yeah, that's a topic that I'm interested in, because
yeah.
there's some guys that just need to get a rocking chair and enjoy the front porch and some cold sweet tea and be proud of what you did. There's some of them, man, that just try so hard to remain relevant, and watching those old timers do that, I look at it as an educational piece of, don't be that way. Like age and retire and kind of move out gracefully, or just move to that next sage level. You're still not going to be, the person everybody's lining up to get autographs from when you're 80, probably, unless you're Colonel Tom Kelly or somebody like that.
That's right.
Yeah, it's definitely a lesson in humility, and seeing how so many of these people cannot let go of that, and watching what they do on Facebook, and it's almost like, all right, now I see what that did to you, and I'm almost sorry for you.
I've had such a hybrid experience in what I've been able to do, and my eyes really were opened up when I was doing some work and collaboration with Cabela's, and a lot of the people that I looked up to. We hear this expression, sometimes, hey, I wish I could do that, or you're lucky, and then you hear things like, never grow up and meet your heroes. Well,
yeah,
when I was younger, I paid attention to how many older individuals were losing their families because they were in the woods and on the water so much. But also remember all of the folks, based on their character and their skill set, that would tell you to kind of prioritize your faith and your family and your work, and not just, go out there and be selfish. All those things were so easily available, this trip or that trip, or this gear or that gear, and some of the money. And I knew early on that I didn't want to lose my family, and I didn't want to lose my connections to my friends, and I didn't want to get too far away from my roots as far as, I didn't want to miss the hunting season back home, and I didn't want to miss, the big bluegill bites on those big beds, in Kentucky, traveling and doing everything. I got a really good taste of it, but I had a full experience of watching others make mistakes that I feel that was the biggest blessing of it all, because there would be people at times that would ask, uh, being a school teacher, I never will forget, I was teaching one day and we were getting everything done in class, and this young male that I think a lot of, he just turned around and he had found something on the internet where there was some information about me and it was a new release. And he's like, "Why are you even at school teaching? Like, when you can do this?" And I looked right at him and I said, "Because I didn't have anybody like me to tell me all the options that were out there." And I said, "That's really important as far as staying in teaching, that you all are exposed and you understand that there's more things to do out there than five main careers. And you need to know how to develop yourself as a person, and you need to understand how so many things are not taught in a way that you'll ever be able to apply 'em." And so, from doing different interviews and podcasts over the years, if anybody's ever listened, I'll say things like, "Are we really teaching art?" Because I know a whole lot of kids that would really like taxidermy work, but we're not necessarily teaching that in art class, right? And I know a whole
Right.
lot of kids that would learn how to read and write better and take better photos if it was something about a piece of farm equipment, or if it was, how to set your calipers or something to determine what type of seed plate you're going to use in your food plot. I mean, you brought up phones, and that's why I bring all this up, is kids have so many opportunities now that we never had, and what they can be exposed to and how techie they are. If they'll use it the right way, man, they can write $100,000 check for themselves so quick. And man, if a young person has work ethic in today's world and they're technically, savvy as far as using their phone and being able to communicate with both, soft skills and writing, and they can comprehend things, man, it's endless with the possibilities. Endless.
Yeah.
Endless.
Well, I feel like I need to get a notepad down. I forgot all the things I
No.
wanted to
Yeah.
come back on there, but the overarching sentiment, I believe, is so true. If you can stay grounded, um, you can still make it, per se, in the outdoor industry,
Mhm.
have some really incredible opportunities, but not really sell your soul in a way that unfortunately you see so many people do. We talked about in the past, living like a coyote. I watched so many of those guys just live, from meal to meal and check to check, trying to survive on
Mhm.
sponsorship dollars. And that's what really drove kind of the ethics crisis that has come out of outdoor television as well,
Mhm.
is the demand to perform. I watched I love watching Bill Winky. I think he's not
Mhm.
like that at all. I like watching his little 10-minute clips of what happened in the woods today. Um, and I mean, Bill was like an engineer prior to going into full-time videoing himself doing deer hunting stuff, but smart guy. Anyways, those guys are so driven to perform. There was a poor guy that was like filming for free. He wasn't making any money. He was
Mhm.
on a team of guys trying to put together a YouTube channel, and he shoots a deer of a lifetime. I mean, it's just the most beautiful buck you could conjure up in your brain.
Mhm.
And he gets to it and he's almost crying. He's like, "I didn't get it on film," and
Mm.
I still like the deer, but it's not what I was out here for.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where I'm at, is it's transitioned so far to the content production, the Instagram look at me side of things, that like instilling roots into the core ethics of hunting
Mhm.
is what I think is most needed today.
Yep.
And when Lauren was telling me some of the stuff you do, and then I heard you killed like 12 does this week to practice what you preach, I was like,
Mhm.
can you ask that guy if he'll be on our podcast?
Yeah.
Because it just sounds like you've got it all kind of in line. I mean, at least you're doing the things that I'm saying I wish more people did.
It's been a busy couple days on the knife, I can tell you that. There's there's so many things that us as hunters we need to think about, and it goes back to that young man that you were talking about killing a big deer and getting it on camera, not towards that individual, but my question is why? Like, why do people have to get these things on video? Like, why are they
Mhm.
recording it? So I'm gonna rip the Band-Aid off and the filter. I think there's a lot of people that want recognition for some weird reason. Now I do believe if you go back in history, some folks were hunters and gatherers, and some folks fetched water, and some folks just kept the campfire stoked, and kept it going. That I do believe that hunting and fishing is a skill set. I truly do believe that. Um, I believe that there's a lot of folks that, going even back to what you were saying, there's a lot of folks that take off work. They take off their pay job. They're using their vacation times to go to hunting shows and career industry events, conventions, acting like they're making a living in the outdoor industry and they're losing money working for companies. That's a sickening thing. If you ever get to see the guts of it, it's nasty.
Well, I think part of
Um,
the reason we got to over 500 outdoor television shows spread across multiple networks at its peak was because a lot of businesses figured out that they could use that as a tax write-off. They
no
could
doubt.
actually create an outdoor television show, travel around the country on that money from their own company. And these were construction workers that I knew that were
Hmm.
trying to put together shows, like union laborers. These guys
Yep.
pooled their money and put together a show, and everybody was seeking the glory, but they also
Hmm.
found like a financial way around the losing money, because
Hmm.
I know a lot of people that have lost money, but I think some of these guys were like, let's just spend the money, get a tax write-off because we call it marketing for our company, and
Hmm.
then, you know, try to be famous all at the same time. So it was pretty
Yeah.
wild that that model existed. I don't think there's any other model like that in content production where you buy the airtime other than infomercials. And it's kind of a like kind of an easy correlation there.
I was blown away. I was traveling through Nebraska, and when I kind of learned about how the outdoor channel and outdoor industry worked on airtime, and everybody else basically gets paid to be on TV, or people pay them to get their program or show. And then in the hunting and fishing world, people were paying to like you said,
Mhm.
to get that airtime. And man, that's just not sustainable. But what else isn't sustainable? Going back on those 12 deer, I filled my Kentucky buck tag very early on Saturday morning. Our modern firearm season opened up, and I had to travel a little bit because we had some CWD uh, concerns that have kind of come onto Kentucky scene. But more importantly, people get it confused. We had a massive outbreak of EHD in
Mhm.
Western Kentucky, where I live at. So I knew I needed to kind of hit the road running, and we've got a really cool program that we're kind of prototyping for the county that I teach in this year that I'm really excited about. And so I could have very easily killed my buck Saturday, put everything in the truck, and gone home. But I had to fill some doe tags, and I hunted in an area that was unlimited does as long as you buy the tags. That's a sore subject with me. Our game and fish agencies, I support them, but they want us to shoot these does and they want to charge us for these tags. So maybe we can have a program about that sometime.
Yeah.
They want hunters. They want hunters to shoot deer, and you got to go online and buy your tags. And I mean, I'm dropping deer quicker than I have tags filling in my pocket. I actually had to stop and get online and legally start buying tags to be legal. But yeah, a lot of folks are complaining about the non-residents coming in to Missouri and Kentucky and all these places, and they're talking about how hard it is for us to have places to deer hunt. And man, I get it. Everybody gets it. Yeah, I mean, hunting it's work. I mean, you're either going to grind and find places to hunt or spend money. You're going to have to do something. You're going to hunt public or whatever. But one thing that we can all do is more habitat work with fire and just turning dirt over and knowing what to mow and when to mow and how to cut our timber. But we've also got to remember too that those does that are out there, the same ones that people are seeing when they're sitting on stand seeing 10 or 15 deer that they're not shooting, man, they're little habitat destroyers too. I love deer. Like, they're great to eat. They give us a lot of excitement. But when you start having carrying capacity and deer density issues between auto accidents and farmers having problems with deer on their properties, and a lot of times that leads to even some of our antlered bucks getting shot when they're in the farmers' fields and they're doing depredation and controlled hunts. You know, we need to do a better job as hunters to promote to young people to not only get out and squirrel hunt more, but when they're deer hunting, also shoot the does too. It's not all about the horns, and we've got to figure out ways in which we can get people to consume that venison, and not just hunters. There's a lot of people out there that need to eat every day, so we've got to advocate and kind of build that gap and bridge our relationship with the non-hunters about how we can get some venison consumption going their way, because we can only eat so many deer a year. It doesn't matter if we're an alpha male on this or that protein diet or trying to increase our body index with muscle mass because of our protein intake. You can only consume so many deer by yourself. And then there's got to be systems in place. And in Kentucky, we've got like Kentucky Hunters for the Hungry. And I know Missouri, you all have got some programs, but I don't think we're doing a very good job listening to our game agencies, even if we have gripes like having to buy those extra doe tags. They have a season set for a reason. And it just seems like it's getting ignored more and more and more every year on those antlerless controlled deer tags not being utilized.
Well, we've got a few things going on over here that are alarming. One, Share the Harvest is our deer donation program, and it's great. You know, it's funded by the Missouri Food Banks, the Department of Conservation. There's some real money behind it. So, you know, we have processed over 5,000 deer. You know, I've done some math. If you look at like a quarter pound per meal, you're talking about over 1 million meals provided to families. I've mentioned it many times on the podcast before, but I don't remember what year it was, but somewhere around 2017 or 18, I was down in Sykeston with the governor to do a press release or a press conference on Share the Harvest kicking off, and we were going over to the food bank. I was sitting in Lambert's Cafe, which a lot of people know, the famous throwed rolls.
That's right. Rolling them rows.
I was sitting there, and my waitress, I was taking notes on a piece of paper, and she said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm getting ready to go over and give a speech on venison donation that'll come to the food banks that'll then be passed out to people in need." And she said, "Hold on a second." And she left, and she came back with 2 other waitresses, and she said, "Scoot over." And all 3 of these waitresses got in my booth, and they said, "We get laid off in the winter, and it gets really hard around here. How can we get in on that program?" And to me, man, that was a light bulb moment, a very like enlightening situation, because I suspect, I suppose that my perception was the people receiving this meat were typically in homeless shelters or really the most downtrodden in society, which is still great. I mean, you talked about hunters historically having a role. I mean, even if you go back to the Lewis and Clark expedition, Coulter was assigned to be the hunter. Somebody had to feed the men, and hunters historically fed their community, and it was a role that you played. You brought food back to the community. And I love the fact that these programs exist to give food to the community, and that single moms like those waitresses or single fathers or families in need, you know, that can use that meat to be a hunter and to have the privilege of providing that to them is something I take very special. But because of CWD, a lot of the processors are opting out of Share the Harvest. There's some misconception. There's some truth as well to the fact that they got to hold on to these deer too long, more time than they're capable of doing until the testing comes back. So I'm not completely versed on all of what's going on, but that's kind of the overarching issue that I'm aware of. And I hope that our good friends at MDC are listening, and, you know, we got to figure this one out, because Share the Harvest needs to grow, not shrink.
You just opened up a whole can of worms. because Shag and I were talking about, not discussing before we went on live because it makes good content. Today, I'm looking at veterans. I'm looking at guys that are retired. They all had knives in their hands. Some folks were on the deboning table. Some folks were skinning. Maybe some folks have this rutcation or this deercation or whatever. Uh, it any high school kid, like kids that I teach, anybody in the community that's looking for extra work, and if there's a deer processor around you in November, I guarantee you can go make some cash money. If you want to hide everything from the IRS, go work all the cash work you want to work, because they need people to cape these deer. They need people to debone these deer. And it's a crisis because it's hard to find workers, period, in our country right now, what we're facing, right? And we don't need it really in October. We really don't need it in September, and we really don't need it in December.
No,
We
man,
need all
I'm
this
gonna
labor
give
in
the idea
November.
away, give
Yeah.
the idea away, but we've talked about it
Yeah.
before. It's the fireworks stands of deer processing.
No doubt,
They
man.
they just show up like a couple days
No
before
doubt.
the season starts, and then
Yeah.
they roll through the
Yeah.
season ends, and you shut them back down.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I'm doing so much work behind the scenes that I can't disclose, but I can tell you I'm busy behind the scenes. And the reason why is CWD is a legit fear factor it's a fearful topic to these processors, and they do not feel like they have the education. There's so many unknowns between like the Department of Ag with their food inspection, and bringing in venison and deer. And a lot of this really started years ago. I'm 47 years old. I remember when the local IGA in Crestwood, Kentucky, where I grew up, they stopped processing deer. I think back then it was like $40 to get your deer processed. And I just did some numbers and stuff today. I think the average deer is going to come out around $140 for traditional cuts at processors in Kentucky now. And that's not even getting into the specialty products. But yeah, we've got to get these deer processed. We've got to, long hours. These guys are talking, they're working 14, 16-hour days. And the more folks that we can get involved and how we can do, podcasts like this, we may not be able to just impact hunters from our recording of doing this. If there's people out there that need some seasonal work, go talk to a processor, like high school kid listens to this, go talk to a processor, go talk to a taxidermist, figure out if you can start, scraping some hides or running some stuff through the grinder. I mean, where do you want to go? Because I'm wide open now. You done got me fired up on the subject that I love.
Yeah, you're a hustler, man. I can tell that we got a lot in common that way. I mean, when I was in high school, I was shoveling driveways, cutting grass, working for my dad's construction company, doing whatever I could do to get my hands on a dollar. Today, it's hard to find the kids that want to work. So like you said earlier, if you can find those kids with the work ethic, man, the sky is the limit for those people. And you touched on another thing that's really important to me, how so many rural people, they fail to educate their children simply because they don't know about all the opportunities that are out there. I talk about this in the sense of the evolution of family. I always say my grandfather was so poor that he left Northwest Tennessee in the open trunk of a car at 8 with his 12-year-old cousin JW to go to Michigan and pick cherries. Because at 8, he was willing to go to Michigan because he knew he could make more money picking cherries than he could make picking cotton. And that was in, the Reelfoot Lake area of Tennessee, Nauvoo by Dyersburg. And
I'm not, you don't hear those stories today.
No, so he did not want his son, my father, to go to college. So my dad was doing night school, got married to my mom at 19, was doing night school at Purdue Cal to become Purdue Calumet. It's an extension, to become an architect. And he thought he had enough credits to get deferred from the Vietnam draft, but he didn't. And he got drafted into Vietnam. So when he came back, he didn't go overseas. He was a MP in Clarksville, Tennessee. Half the guy, they like split the room by your last name, and he fell on the state side. It was a 50-50. So anyways, he had enough of being poor. So he just went to work, and he's done really well. He was third generation owner of a really nice construction company. But he wouldn't let me work there if I didn't graduate from college.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, why and it was a fight. I was like, man, I'm the best worker you got. Why do I have to go to college? You didn't go to college. Grandpa didn't go to college. He said, because you'll have more opportunity. And that was the only thing he could say. And I fought him on it. But about the beginning of my sophomore year, it started to all make sense. And now I've graduated from college 3 times. And I've got my 2 daughters are both at Mizzou. And I can tell them, if you do this, it'll apply to your life in this way. And, you know, you go from a guy that's riding in the trunk of a car, you know, 4 generations to pick cherries instead of cotton, and to his great granddaughters that are going into accelerated MBA programs and law school, you know, and that's the evolution of family through hard work and attrition. So
No doubt.
and when people say the American dream is dead, like, it's not dead. You just got to be willing to work. You got to be able to put some sweat equity into it. And it might not, it's like the monarch butterfly. You might not be the one that gets all the way back to Mexico, but that one's not getting back to Mexico if you don't do your part as well.
Correct.
Yeah, I just went to college to play basketball and happened to get a degree.
Did you study broadcast radio?
No. It was something I always wanted to do. Like, for as long as I can remember, the music would get in the way. I was just fascinated by the idea of these radio DJs, especially morning radio, that all these guys were getting paid. That was their job. And I was doing all this stuff at school and getting in trouble and getting suspended and getting grounded for making prank phone calls and just being a smart ass. And I was like, well, what? I want that job. And when I got to college, I had a professor, a communication professor, that talked me out of chasing the dream of radio, because he's like, there's no money in it. It's a dying media. Like, don't do it. And terrible advice, just horrible advice. So I just got a degree in business communication with an emphasis in public relations. I thought it would be cool because no one in my family went to college either. My mom did like a semester in community college. So in my brain, I was like, well, I'm going to get this degree. I'm going to go back to Oregon. I'm going to be the PR guy for the Portland Trail Blazers. So I'll be the guy that writes up the press release after Rasheed Wallace gets in trouble for smoking dope again at the airport. And I'll be the man. And then I got back home and was unemployed for like 9 months because it's the real world and it's not the fantasy land that I had built up in my head. And I had an uncle that did sales for a local radio station, and he knew the general manager and got me an interview. And during the interview, I told her, I was like, you know, it's always been a dream of mine to be on air. The interview was for sales. And she goes, really? I go, yeah. She goes, all right, follow me. So she took me into the morning show guy, Mark McDermott. And she's like, Mark, put him on the next break. And I was like, okay. And him and I just fired a couple of shots back and forth, made a couple of people laugh. And we went back to the interview. And she goes, all right, well, I'm going to hire you for sales, but I'll let you come in an hour early and you can do the morning show with Mark. And that just turned into an hour early, turned into like full-time fill-in for any of the other DJs that might have been out sick, to like, I worked there for 9 months and I sold 2 accounts. Like, you couldn't give me the taste of being on air and expect me to go back to my cubicle and cold call. I was just doing nothing but writing radio bits for the next morning and dipping out and going fishing during the day. Like, it was chaos. But yeah, that's how I actually got into the radio gig. And she was so nice. I don't know if I've told this story on this podcast before, but it was corporate radio. It was intercom. And corporate called down after looking at the numbers and was like, who is this Nathan McLeod character? Because he's been there 9 months and he hasn't sold anything. And she tried to explain, like, he does a lot. You know, he's on there. He does this stuff. He's like, that's not what we're paying him to do. So you got to fire him. So then she pulled me into the office and was like, listen, I got to go to a work conference. I leave today. I haven't seen you. Hear me? I haven't seen you. But when I get back, I'm gone for a week. I need you to put your 2 weeks in. So she gave me a 3-week heads up that I was losing my job and to find something else. And I applied to every radio station in Columbia, Missouri, because my teammates I played basketball with in the Twin Cities in Minnesota were from like this area, the mid-Missouri area, Boonville, and had moved to Columbia, and they'd been hounding me forever to move out here. And I applied to all the radio stations. One station replied back with a weekend shift, 7 to midnight. So I was like, good enough. And I packed up my Ford Bronco and I drove 1,500 miles at the age of 21 for a 5-hour a week job, not a day, a week to chase this dream. I slept on an air mattress. I joked it was my white trash waterbed. I couldn't afford water. So we just had an air mattress. And I mean, I turned it into management in like 2 years. And like we're talking about just hard work, dedication, worked 3 jobs, 7 days a week, chasing that dream of radio. And now here we are. They're all moved off and I'm still in Columbia, Missouri.
Connections with people and common sense. I don't think most educational institutes talk about it enough. It's amazing how many opportunities come in people's careers or what they do for their career based off of just 1 or 2 people that had some type of inspiration in their life. But it's no different than getting a place to hunt or somebody sharing a location for you to go fish. You know, you just kind of know there's points in times when you can maybe share a pen with somebody or a certain access to a place to go in and maybe let a fly float, you know, and maybe give away your secret spots. And there's other times that there's people that you don't extend that hand because you can just trust your gut. And I think that's kind of what's missing in the world today is I don't think that piece of paper, that degree or that certificate is important as what a lot of people think that it is. You can have all the credentials in the world, but if you don't have that hustle, if you don't have that drive, and really it boils down to your character, if you don't have any type of integrity, you're not going to go anywhere. And it's the same thing in the deer woods, or it's the same thing in the trout stream. You've got to constantly improve yourself, and you got to constantly keep studying to get better and better and better. And you've got to guard yourself at the same time too, because man, if you slip up or you don't do it's kind of what's expected, and somebody will axe you or somebody else will come in and ride your coattails and push you right out of the way. So all this develops, you know, as we age, and to me, it ties into our hunting, our fishing, and careers and family. It's everything.
Man, don't you wish you could tell 17-year-old Scott the things 47-year-old Scott knows?
Oh man. Yeah.
We both, Shags and I, have a great affection for State Tech. You know, it's a technical school outside of Jefferson City that's one of the best in the country. And it's amazing to go down there and see all those opportunities, things that I'm super interested in, like airplane mechanics school and heavy construction equipment operators, plumbers, electricians. They can all go to school. And what I think is so important about it, I agree with you 100% that piece of paper isn't the most important aspect of an education. It's the network that you come out with. It's your kind of, I always tell my kids going away to school is kind of like walking the tightrope with the safety net underneath you. And when you get that piece of paper, they pull the net out. Now you've got to actually survive. So my daughter, that's a freshman, you know, she's really, really proud of her straight A's. And I'm proud of her too. But I continue to ask her, you know, tell me about a club that you've joined, or tell me about a lecture that you went and listened to. Tell me about some friends that you've made that you went to the co-rec with, work out. I want to know that you're expanding and growing and doing more than just getting grades. Because if it's just about the grades, you can do that online, you know?
No doubt.
Anybody that you can pay the money to get the grades. I mean, you got to do the work to get them. But at the same time, it's the networking, it's the time with others, it's learning about yourself, it's learning about the world that really makes that education great. And going down to State Tech, you can see all those are guys, mostly guys. There's some girls there too, but a
They
lot
have
of
a good
guys.
nursing program and dental hygienists and stuff. Is
That's
that
right.
right?
They
Too?
do. They do have programs that still today seem to be pretty gender defined. You know, you've got the guys and the heavy equipment operators, and like you said, dental hygienists, nurses. Um, but it's so hands on. And
Mm-hmm.
most of those people were people that probably said at one point, I don't want to go to college. And then
Mm-hmm.
they end up there and they come out with skills. And while most kids that go to college are still in school, these guys and gals are coming out making $60,000-$70,000 in the trades and just
Mm-hmm.
off and running.
Yep.
And we
Basic
need good tradesmen.
foundational, no doubt. That's just it. Basic foundational knowledge of concrete or excavating, plumbing, electricity. Not only is that stuff needed, now in education, they've reversed the roles a little bit. If you're willing to go to work for some of these companies, they'll pay for your education and they'll pay
Oh,
you
yeah.
to sit in class. And man, some of the opportunities that some of these manufacturers and corporate names have to go to work for them, and they'll train you through their programs, and it's kind of it's like a test drive. They get to fill you out for a couple of years. You get to fill them out for a couple of years. If it doesn't work, you've got your degree and certificate. They've paid for it. And you can go your own way, or if it's a good marriage there, then by God, they'll keep you on the payroll. And next thing you know, you've established and developed a career there. And the other thing too about the trades and just different types of jobs, and since we all love the outdoors so much, when did you ever learn about time and a half or hazard pay in any educational class that you had in high school, right?
Yeah.
When you start looking at all of our friends that decided to go into the service, or they were in law enforcement and they only had to put 20 years in, they've retired 3 times and they're still working, and they have more PTO time or time off to hunt and fish than any of us. Man, we missed the boat. Like, I didn't get that lesson. That lecture. I went to class, man. I didn't hear that one. Did you all? Like, hey,
No.
you can work
No.
for 20 years, or you can have a bunch of PTO time. And those are things I think, you're talking about, what would the 17-year-old Scott do? We're living in a world right now where these kids, whether me personally, I don't jump on the anxiety, mental health train. I do believe that we used to use words like, hey, I'm nervous or I'm scared. Now we say I have anxiety, and you got to respect all that. Don't get me wrong. But I do believe that when you start looking at work-life balance, or you start looking at how we can help kids, I think spending time in the outdoors is very important. And I think it's a very important thing. In my ag employability class and all of my classes, I try to explain to kids how important it is not to have a job that keeps you so busy that you can't carry out your hobbies and your passions as you get older. You don't want to be so committed and so tied to work that if you like to ride a mountain bike, or if you like to hike or fish or camp or hunt, don't get yourself in a position to where you can't do those things. Especially understand what your youth is and what the condition of your health and your body is, and don't put things off. Going back to looking at some of those hunters, those people in my life that I listened to, well, they wanted to go and hunt in high elevation, and they wanted to go and hunt this species and that species. But man, by the time that they had the money and the time that they had the time, they didn't have the body to do it. And it's so important, like, that there's something there, whether, Shag or you or me, or I think it's important just to kind of not brainwash students. I think it's important to just expose them, to make them think and make them process that, hey, am I a morning person? Am I an evening person? Do I want to work weekends? Do I want to work a swing shift? I know a lot of guys that are phenomenal at hunting and fishing, and it's because they're a firefighter. And it's not because that they had this great skill set that was taught to them at the firehouse. It's because of the way that the work shift is. They can stay on the fish or stay in the woods for 3 or 4 days at a time, then they go to work. Or they have a lot of freedom with their job. And to me, all that stuff is extremely important. Or certain jobs you can network and you can gain access to different states or different pieces of ground to hunt. And it's like me teaching ag. I never in a million years knew that being an agriculture education teacher was going to be such a key to so many locks to access so much property. And it didn't start by introducing myself, asking if I could go kill a big buck. It was the fact that I was helping people with water problems where they were having flooding or they had some type of infestation of a weed that was, coming onto their property, or they had questions about managing their timber. And the next thing that you're, riding across their farm and there's a bunch of deer, a bunch of turkeys, or a bunch of ducks sitting on some flooded timber. And you're like, oh, I don't care if you hunt. We don't let people hunt, and it goes back to it's like your connection, Shag, with the radio station. I'm a big believer that you meet everybody for a reason. And I'm a big believer that certain things happen at certain times, both success and failures, for reasons to teach us lessons outside of the classroom.
Yeah. Amen. Well,
No doubt about it.
I want to bring this back to deer hunting, because before we got on here, Scott, we were kind of talking about the CWD issue as well. And you kind of hinted at it earlier, talking about how it's creeping into Kentucky as well. What's the word on the street down there when it comes to CWD? Because I'm sure, as you know, Missouri is in it hot and heavy, and we are team MDC, and a lot of people, I shouldn't say a lot of people, there's just a vocal minority that is not.
Yeah. A lot of the vocal minority are the same person.
Yeah.
Who's got such a warped sense of reality that he sits at home with multiple accounts and just says hurtful things to people online all day with fake accounts. Like, that's that person's life. It's really sad.
Yeah.
So I'm in real quick, Scott. I'm real interested, Shags, though, to see. I think maybe we're, so hyper focused on Missouri that we don't know that the same sort of thing is going on in Kentucky. I mean, we've gotten quite a bit of feedback on a little reel we had about Ted Nugent and what he had going on down in Texas. But, when the Republic of Texas is coming under attack for being, not right with the deer hunters, you can tell that it's not just Missouri. And I'm real interested in seeing how much vitriol there is going on in the bluegrass state.
So one of the things that scares me the most about CWD is how it's going to divide us as a hunting community. That's just fact. I think that there's a lot of people who are on the side, maybe where they're a little too overboard with the fears that they have of it right now, the unknown or the assumptions. And I think there's also a lot of people that don't take it serious enough. And so it leaves such a gap into where we all kind of need to be on it. I'm not speaking for the Department of Fish and Wildlife for Kentucky. I'm not an employee with the Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife, but I can tell you that basically we're dealing with a lot of confusion because of some scenarios that have developed. Like, we had a positive confirmed case of CWD down in the western part of the state. We've got captive deer herds that have tested positive with CWD. And a lot of counties and a lot of areas have had restrictions and regulations put into place. We have regs that are actually part of the CWD action plan that haven't necessarily been followed. They've kind of been amended a little bit, or maybe not put into full force. And so just a few weeks ago, we had another confirmed case in Pulaski County, Kentucky, and it was before our modern gun season, which is currently going on, and there was no regs or rules put into place for that, which it really has a lot of people scratching their head, right? So why do they scratch their head? And that is, we've got counties that are next to counties that had a confirmed case, and they can't transport carcasses across certain areas like county lines or zones. And then you got counties that have a confirmed case that don't have any rules or regulations in place right now. So I will just say this, as far as the early stages of it, we're not consistent from one county to the next. And we're not consistent so far with whether or not it's in the captive deer herd, the domesticated deer herd, or the wild deer herds. Now, more importantly, when it comes to baiting and moving carcasses and all of those things, my biggest fear as an individual is, no matter if people want to take Dr. Kroll's advice or Ted Nugent or listen to the scientists or the different biologists that are out there, the big fear is, if we ever have one case in the nation, just one, if we ever have just one case in the nation where someone actually does consume venison and it does spread as a zoonotic disease into the human beings from consumption, I'm really scared on what it's going to do to our sport and the economy of hunting. I wish people would truly listen to the science. I really do. I get so tired of people talking about, follow the money, deal,
Oh, I
that
know.
kind of part.
Drink the
I
Kool-Aid,
yeah,
follow the money. They've only got a few.
yeah, I care about the deer herds, and so what have I been doing the last 2 days? I was out of the classroom. I was given the right for Monday and Tuesday not to be in the classroom teaching in front of kids. And I put miles in, and I traveled to these processors, and I talked to hunters and hotels and restaurants and public parking lots. And when you talk to average people about CWD, they don't know anything about it. That's the truth. And at least in the state of Kentucky, they've heard this, they've heard that. They're really not researching it on their own. It's amazing how powerful media is. They're not scared of it. As far as, they're not going to stop hunting over it, but they're just, most average people that don't make podcasts or don't make social media, they're just listening to whatever the media says. And so, they're a very captive audience. And I think there's a way that they can be influenced, in a very positive way. But, CWD has really become more controversial in deer hunting than the crossbow and the vertical bow. And the thing about it is if you care about the whitetail deer herds and you care about the sport, and if you are at all economically connected to whitetail deer, selling a corn, selling a product, leasing land, a processor, a hunter that, takes time off, you spend your money on it. I would advocate that you start learning about CWD and understanding that you do not want to have a high percentage of your population that has it. I mean, there's two things that I'll say. Number one, on the record, I do want to know if a deer that I kill or harvest has CWD. I personally want to know that. I really do believe that we're to the point where, as a consumer of the product, we should know whether or not our deer is positive for CWD or not. I would like to know that. I would like to have an instant in the field kit eventually develop to where we have on hand. The second thing is, it seems to be that more people are more concerned about whether or not they can put out bait than whether or not they have a deer to hunt. And so my belief, my education, and my philosophy on this is that this is a deer herd management time where we need to do what's right for not just us as having an animal to hunt, the fun, the sport of it, but actually for the well-being of the age structure and the herd and the balance of the deer herd. Like, we really need to understand that this is going to be as much about the management of that animal And we need to maybe step aside and not focus so much on our hunting. We need to focus on the species and make sure that they thrive and do well. And then we have our sport that continues in heritage and tradition.
Man, my thoughts look like one of those intersections in a major metropolitan city right now, where
Oh,
there's
yeah.
like
Yeah.
there's like 30 different ways that I can go. And
Mhm.
I'm going to start with what you kind of finished on there last, but I don't believe most deer hunters care more about the deer or conservation than they do about just having something fun to do for a weekend.
Mhm.
I think we too often get caught up in the very false notion that most people that go deer hunting care as much as we do. And by we, I mean people that take it real serious. And there are
Mhm.
people on both sides of the CWD debate in that camp. Um, Missouri has about 520,000 unique deer hunters.
Mhm.
Collectively, they buy a little over 1 million licenses per year. So you've got most, most guys are going out. It's spread out some. If you look at the data, I've seen it recently. If you look at the data, it has spread out more in recent years than in the past, but a significant portion of the overall harvest still occurs opening weekend of rifle season.
Mhm.
Something like 35% occurs in those 2 days. And then the next week, that 10-day stretch, it's well over 70% of the deer killed in that 10-day stretch. And that's deer hunting for most guys and gals. Is they go out a couple of times. That's Shags. I mean, that's who Shags is. Shags is going to go out and debate on whether or not he shoots one because he doesn't want to have to gut it. and, um, but he's going to have a great time. He's going to travel down to St. James. He's going to stay with our friend Damon. He's going to eat out. He's going to buy a few supplies. He's going to stimulate the economy. He's going to add to Pittman Robertson. He's going to spend money that's going to get taxed and go to the Missouri model. He's buying a license. He's doing all the things, but he just doesn't care that much about it. He's going to be in his deer stand thinking about golf or fishing.
Mhm.
And he represents more deer hunters, I think, Scott, than you and I do. And
Mhm.
I get into these debates a lot with people, and just tonight, we still haven't got what I had going on all night, but I talked to David Westmoreland, who is the best deer hunter I know. I know a lot of deer hunters, and I can say that guy, I mean, his home proves it, but he has this notion that everybody has the same desires as him. And I get it. It's kind of like saying, everybody wanted to date, the prom queen or the cheerleading captain, but most of us, were happy to settle for somebody that wasn't that.
Mhm.
And most of us go out, and by most of us, I mean the collective deer hunting community, and we're real happy to shoot a 2-year-old 8-pointer. It's a big
Mhm.
deal. And there's a contingent of guys that they would never do that. And it's come through um many years of success, but there's also a contingent that's starting there. That's what they see on YouTube. That's what they see in these videos. Like there's no there's no thought process behind the conservation aspect or the
Mhm.
wildlife aspect. It's kind of like a game with a score. Like what
Yep.
is your score?
Yep.
And I truly believe that's one of the worst things that's ever happened to deer hunting because um and I'll give James Kroll credit for that. We don't agree on, the CWD thing, but he said that he was part of that, like
Mhm.
at North American Whitetail, creating that model of hunter who
Mhm.
is so locked in on the antler inches and the Instagram glory that it's taken away from the root of it all. But I still believe the vast majority of hunters are shags that just go.
It's so refreshing because to hear you say that, because the last 2 days that I've got to go and work and be in the field and interview these folks and just talk to them at their tailgate and stuff, one thing about the surveys and the interviews that I do with people at the processors that's different than the one that you get in your email is I'm catching these guys and gals coming off of a high, right? They've just got their deer. They've come to the processor. Now they're going to get their summer sausage made up, or they can't wait to get their ground beef, or they feel good donating it. So when I survey them and I'm asking them questions, I'm catching them at that optimum point, man. I mean, they won't turn you down. They want to share their story. That's what I do. Like, hey, tell me about your deer. That's how I'll introduce it. And I won't tell them who I am or nothing. They're like, oh man, I got to tell, they're just into it, and most of them, they've got, they're not into First Light. They're not into Sika. They're not into Realtree. They're not into Mossy Oak. Hell, they've got some type of hooded sweatshirt on. They've got some
Carhartt.
sweatpants.
They're on Team Carhartt.
Yeah. And
I'm Team
they've got
Carhartt.
they've got all their stuff. There's a Hardee's biscuit wrapper coming out of the truck when they open the door.
Yes.
I mean, yeah, I mean, they're just everyday people, right?
They got
And they don't care
on their boots from standing
No
in the
doubt.
parking
Yeah.
lot this
Yeah.
morning
Yeah.
before they went hunting.
They don't have any care in the world,
Right.
whether the wind's out of the southeast or whether it's northwest. They don't care if the barometric pressure's up or down. They just know they've seen a lot of deer this morning. They were on fire,
That's right.
and they're sharing all that with you, and they're off work. And most of the time, hunters are still with their brother, or they're still with their dad or their uncle, or a friend that they only get to see once or twice a year, or an old fraternity brother. I mean, it's such a special moment. And so why do I share this with you at a time that we're talking about CWD? I will say this. I don't think most hunters get caught up in all that. I do believe that we're getting back to more of a acceptance to no matter what size buck you kill, people are happy for you. I think it's coming back around that if that man's happy or that female's happy with shooting that animal, then that's their tag, and don't knock them down for it. I think that's growing. There's still some people that are real serious about inches and age and all that, but I think the majority of hunters, let's pick on you, Shag, they just want to do what's right. They don't want to break the law. They don't care if the tag goes up $35. They really don't care if somebody next to them is hunting from out of state, as long as they're respectful. They just want to deer hunt a few days a year. It's not a competition, but they want deer to hunt, and they'll try to do things. And it's very important that these average people, and what I think, and you think too, Brendan, is the majority of the sport on that opening weekend of firearms season, the Orange Army. I think it's really important that we figure out how we shake hands with them and look them in the eye and gain their trust through this CWD era that we're going to live through, because we need it. Those guys and gals, they're building Ford trucks. They're driving UPS trucks. They're pilots. They're dentists. They're deer hunters. And we can all come together to manage a resource, and we can manage the resource when we don't cloud the waters, and we just shoot them straight, and we talk to them just like me and you are right now. Like, hey, we only know you deer hunt a couple days a year, but this is what we need you to do during those couple days a year. And I really do believe that if you're at the check station and you're talking to a guy or a gal and they've had a buck and a doe and they're like, oh, I seen 5 or 6. I just, I could have shot them all. I had tags, but hey, do you know about this program to help feed the hunger? Hey, do you realize that we need as many samples as we possibly can? Hey, do you realize that we need to reduce our deer density because CWD is come onto the forefront? And I do believe that over time, there's been a lot of grandfathered in policy or taught things about how we're going to manage does or when we're going to shoot them, or a cull buck or any of that stuff. I think it's very important as we develop our hunter education classes to start talking more about CWD in those courses, not just about how we control the muzzle. And I think it's very important that we start talking about when and how many deer we kill out of certain areas to help combat and fight deer density, carrying capacity, and diseases such as CWD.
Do you have, I guess, do you have experience in Kentucky with crowds of people that are very loud and vocal on social media against CWD? I mean, and really that's kind of where we went with the whole Ted Nugent thing was,
Mm-hmm.
we've got celebrities talking to these average hunters like we're talking about those people that, like you said, they don't live and breathe this.
Mm-hmm.
They're not studying white-tailed deer. They're not, watching lectures from scientists on it, but they'll watch a reel with Ted Nugent in a cut
Mm-hmm.
off sleeveless shirt
Mm-hmm.
screaming at the commission in
Yep.
Michigan or Texas and calling them horrible people and
Mm-hmm.
calling them, communists and just demeaning these people that have devoted their lives to conservation and trying to do the right thing. And then you got a guy who's just a mouthpiece for the high fenced industry in
Mm-hmm.
Kroll, and
Mm-hmm.
so you've got the one scientist who is paid to say things versus every state deer biologist in the country. But because he, is a deer hunting celebrity, you've got
Mm-hmm.
this army willing to follow those two off the cliff. And that's what's so unfortunate about it, because it is going to be damaging in time to the community. And I do agree with you too. Like we run into a lot of the COVID comparisons, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm the first to laugh at the plexiglass between the booths in McDonald's, or
Yeah.
masking everyone, that the ridiculous stuff that the government tried to make us do.
Yep.
And I get where the angst comes from and the distrust, but at the
Mm-hmm.
same time, I mean, we had Doug Dern down to talk about what it's like to live where 40 to 50% of the bucks that are over 2.5 years old have
Mm-hmm.
CWD.
Yep.
And try to explain to somebody how the population will continue to increase because the disease takes 18 to 24 months to do
Mm-hmm.
what it's going to do. So breeding can still take place in that time, but what you're going to lose is the older age class.
Mm-hmm.
So now you've got those, man, I would take a shot at Sitka, but you're wearing Sitka. I was going to say
Oh no, go ahead.
those Sitka wearing guys, that are, only in it for the glory of the antler inches and the score, like the golf bros that are
No
now
doubt.
like, we have golf bro hunters, like we
Mm-hmm.
have frat boy golf bro hunters, and they're only in it for the antler inches and the Instagram glory and all that. So they've partnered up with this contingent that has kind of always been at the bottom, the guys
Mm-hmm.
that are against everything. They hate everybody. They hate
Yeah.
everything. There's no good regulations. There should be no regulations. It should be outdoor anarchy. The government doesn't know anything. And it really stems from jealousy of not killing good bucks because they don't have the private land that the golf bro hunters have.
Mm-hmm.
But now they both are against the idea of CWD regulations. So the odd couple has paired up, which
Mm-hmm.
is super weird, man. It's just
Yeah.
it's like getting squeezed from both sides.
Yeah. So yes, we definitely have people who are very loud and vocal that you shouldn't pay attention to it. It's been around forever. It's similar to scrapies, or it is scrapies and sheep and yada da da da. Here's what's sad about that. People will disagree with you and me and Shag, but we're learning more about it every day. That's kind of what life is all about, right? Like, I would just tell people that the vehicle that I drive today has a totally different suspension and engine and transmission in it than 30 years ago. It's developed. It's gotten better. So I'm gonna make fun of it in another way. Prion, prion. People don't even know how to, say what they're talking about, right? It will evolve. We evolved as human beings, right? And so what diseases we tend to learn about and what we're studying about this is just a whole nother world of medicine, even in healthcare outside of the CWD, that we're starting to realize that we're going to have to know more and more about when it comes to proteins and what they can do and how things can dissolve or code differently. So if people are not going to believe that CWD is something to take with consideration of concern, I hope they're at least smart enough to understand that we'll agree to disagree, but they need to understand that it will change and it could go either way. It could, maybe we can advance in how we can manage it. Maybe it gets to where we can't manage it as well, but it needs to be respected. And we also have got to realize that it, at any point in time, that I know that there's a lot of people that they want to act like they're big and they're bad. But I don't know too many people who will take CWD positive deer and sit down with you and eat the venison without some type of weird gut wrenching feeling that like this shouldn't be done, right? I'm an ag teacher. I wouldn't feed a cow that tested positive for mad cow disease to my family, right? And so if a deer tests positive for CWD and I've harvested that deer, I'm in a really weird spot because I've taken an animal's life. And the number one reason was not inches, it was to provide protein for me and my family. The mushrooms and the green peppers and the onions, and whether or not we made it in chili or we made spaghetti or whether I had a whole meat product or I just made a bag of jerky. I'm not going to feed my family or my friends something that has an unknown.
Mhm.
And it's, I'm not scared to eat venison. I'm not. But I do know that we have USDA, quality grade, and we have, where things are inspected to keep our society safe. And so now we're faced with this fact that, hey, we have deer, they're going through processors, and they could be infected with a disease. Now, to take it one step further and to at least respect CWD, I know that most processors, when I get a roll of summer sausage back or meat sticks back, I know that that's probably not my deer.
Right.
And that's another huge topic when it comes to these
Mhm.
processors. Like, so you take, for example, say you all come over here to Kentucky and you deer hunt, or I go there to Missouri. We, what I teach in the classroom, I have to teach kids how to debone meat now, not just to make a wholesale cut into a retail cut. I have to teach them how to do that because if they're going to deer hunt, you can't even throw the deer in the back of your pickup truck and cross the county line. So all those people that are really strong and loud and vocal, I wish they would start helping some of these kids and teach them how to debone their deer so that they can go and at least harvest the deer and not be hauling the whole carcass across the state. But me and you can't travel in and out of each other's state anymore, like on the old traditional deer hunt. Like it's impacting how people hunt on a Sunday afternoon. If you're hunting in a CWD zone in Kentucky, you've got to debone that animal before maybe you drive home because you got to cross a
That
county line that's
that
outside of the zone. It's
that's what I was gonna say.
restricting our hunting.
It's not just
Yeah,
states, it's counties. You can't
no
leave the
doubt.
county. Yeah.
Yeah, and so there's so many parts of this that everybody needs to get on the same page about, because take that really loud vocal person, just shut up for a damn minute. Shut the hell up and realize that this now is impacting a taxidermist that is an extremely good friend of yours. And now 50% of his revenue is not going to be able to come into his practice because people don't know how to skull cap a deer,
Yeah.
or they're going to have to use a different taxidermist, or the processor that you use for years because you don't have time to debone your meat. You're going to have to take it somewhere. Or the people that love to bring their meat home and work it up. You can't just throw the whole deer in the back of the truck now and work on it the next day. It has put such a twist into how we're going to have to hunt and what's going to have to be done. And no matter how people slice it, I'll have people hate the fact that we're even talking about this. You're asking, are people vocal about it? I will have friends of mine that will years worth of trust and knowledge. There'll be a disagreement because of how I feel about CWD versus them. But we have to understand that it is changing our sport. It's changing how we bring our deer home. It's changing how we consume our deer. It's changing how all the businesses that provide services to deer are having to adapt. Our game agencies are stressed over it. Our law enforcement has got more responsibility to patrol. You've got more communications and outreach than ever before to make sure that people are informed on how they do things. Our commission meetings are busier than they've ever been because of new cases popping up. And the thing is everybody thinks that they're an expert, but yet they won't listen to the experts that are trying to tell them what to do.
I've always been in the boat too of, I would rather look back 10, 15, 20 years from now and go, all right, maybe we did a little too much.
Yeah.
But I don't want to be 20 years down the road and go, God, I wish we had done more.
Yeah. And I'm there with you. So this says, like, I don't want to go like full blown overboard, right? I don't want to be the plexiglass guy on CWD, but I also don't want to be the free for all over here that's saying, well, it's nothing. You don't have to worry about anything. I mean, I want to be conscious about it. And I want to make sure that I'm doing underneath my decision, my conscious decision, that I'm doing everything I can do to help reduce it.
Yeah.
Ask somebody that. If you think CWD is nothing to worry about, just ask them. So you're saying you wouldn't care if 75% of the deer herd? I mean, maybe we can keep the deer herd to 41% of the bucks have it. Well, that's a lot better than 72% of the deer herd having it, right? And that's what I try to ask them. Are you at all concerned about trying to just keep the CWD rate down? Like, would you like to keep it to a lower percentage? Do you care about that?
So many of them say it's not real. Don't.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and to give some testimony to that, and then we'll open up the airways for y'all to talk and share. We know more about CWD now than we did last year. And we know more about CWD now than we did 3 years ago and 5 years ago. And I will tell you that I do not have to get loud, and I do not have to cuss, and I do not have to sit on a social media platform. I'm telling you, the more we learn about CWD, and Brandon, I know you know this, the more that we learn that it's impacting those big mature bucks that we do like to hunt.
Right.
I love shooting those, but I like having big mature bucks to go after. And it is impacting how many of those big deer we have to hunt.
And that's part of the reason, like, I support MDC and their culling. I don't know if Kentucky started that yet, but again, we've all talked about how I'm kind of the weekend warrior. I used to be diehard deer hunter, and it seems like the older I've gotten, the more I've evolved into a fisherman than a hunter. But I still enjoy going out there. But I'm not going to be like you. I'm not going to shoot 6 does. If I see a nice buck, I'm probably going to take one this year just because the cost of beef is so expensive. I need to put some meat in our freezer. But that's one of my biggest gripes too. When people are very critical of the culling, they take less than 1% of the deer harvested during hunters. But it seems like some of the most vocal people ask them, well, how many does did you shoot? How many deer did you take to try to limit? MDC wouldn't have to cull any if all the hunters did what they are asking them to. They opened extra seasons, but then the people are still bitching and moaning about that. I just find it very frustrating. I joke with Brandon all the time that sometimes I just want to shake Missouri residents, being from Oregon, going, you guys are so spoiled out here. What are you complaining about? We had people on this podcast that in their lifetime, they were let out of grade school because someone saw a deer track in one person's lifetime. And now we have 1.7 million deer, but it's not enough. We got to have more, but you're not doing enough to I just find it super frustrating that people are so so quickly to be anti MDC when they're not doing their part to help
Well,
with the population.
Yeah.
I'm doing a regional rut update for Game and Fish magazine every week, so I've got to stay on top of the deer that are being killed across the Midwest. And there are more good deer killed today in a week than there used to be in a season. I mean, it's unbelievable how deer have evolved in the Midwest just through, what used to be QDMA kind of started the whole thing off, but growing deer to an older age class. So there's like the bucks of Indiana, Missouri has the Missouri. There's some of these pages that they're taking a break from bashing all things, you know, state agency related to show the giant bucks that are being killed. So they'll quickly go back to there are no good bucks. Everything is horrible. The government has culled and killed them all. They're wiping out our herd. Follow the money. Drink the Kool-Aid. But we interrupt all that to show you how truly incredible it really is out there. But we will return to the regularly scheduled program here soon. Like, it's just ridiculous how many great bucks are killed in Missouri, in Indiana. I mean, Indiana, I will say, for people that, want to make an argument for the 1 buck rule, it works if killing trophy bucks is what you're concerned about. I read a post the other day that was so well written, and the guy laid out, and he's one of the regulars, hates MDC because every deer in the woods isn't 150-inch Boone and Crockett, buck. And he laid out this plan for, it should be like this, it should be like this, it should be like this, it should be like that. And I started to type out, that would be perfect if the goal was only to grow giant bucks. And I deleted it and didn't post. But that's the mentality of so many of these guys is, it's the supermodel thing that I said earlier. Like, everybody wants a supermodel, and they think that, every buck should be of mounting size or 140-inch plus buck. And it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Like, if somebody killed one of those bucks when I was a kid 35 years ago, at 10 years old at the check station, there would have been 30 guys standing around the truck, looking at it and gawking over it. And now it's just one after another, after another, after another. Good mature bucks get killed. So it's just wild. The more spoiled people become, the more they just want to complain about how they don't have it good.
I will say this, in the state of Kentucky, we used to have deer check stations, and every single year it gets brought up about how much people miss those.
Oh, the community aspect that's lost because of them.
Yeah.
Being gone.
And unfortunately, I see it. Social media has replaced the check station.
It has.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so when, and I butcher 90% of the wild game that I eat, I do all my own butchering, but I do have some specialty products made up because some people do have some blends and some spices that are extremely good. But going to the processors, it's amazing to me how many people stop by that are local or just, they're in out of town hunting just to kind of see what's being brought in. That,
it's replaced the check stations.
It has. It's that nostalgia. And the thing that I think that we're up against right now with CWD, the age structure of deer, killing big deer, fixed blade versus mechanical, or what weight arrow you shoot, whether you hunting solids or camo, all of that stuff. When you get back to what you were talking about, the average deer hunter, you really realize what the sport is all about. And the thing is I hate to, you mentioned a gentleman that's the best whitetail hunter, there's guys and gals that are really good at, trout fishing, maybe in certain streams of Wyoming, or there's people that are really good at, hunting ducks in the in the flooded timber in Missouri or Kentucky, or there's always that constant big deer killer. But you can take all the latest and the greatest gear, and the person who does all these regiments with their scent control, and they shoot their bow every day, and they do CrossFit, and they're on supplements, and they wash their clothes this way, and a guy can still go out there in 2025 and sit on a 5-gallon bucket or in an old
Smoking a
barn and kill a
cigarette.
freaking whopper.
Yeah, with a
Just as
heater in his
well,
lips.
just as
Yep.
well as the guy that has every strategic leaf pulled aside for his entry and exit in and out of the woods.
Yep.
I mean,
100%.
today, I was drinking coffee and I was watching the sun come up over the ridge, and I had a full day of work ahead of me. I was scouting, I was going to processors, I was interviewing people, just a lot. And I mean, I could have put a 30-30 up on a fence post and killed a 160-inch deer just because it's the rut. My buck tag's filled,
Yeah.
but there's no strategy in that, right? But if I would have just taken that over to the old processor, no one really would have asked, how did you kill it? Or what would your, it's like, wow, it's the antlers, right? No, what you take a guy that drops his tailgate down, he's got 12 does, that gets you a little bit of attention. But at the same time, you drop your tailgate and you got a doe, or you drop your tailgate and you got a great big buck, guess where everybody walks to? They don't ask the guy how his doe hunt went. They didn't ask,
Yeah.
they go to the buck.
It's interesting though, because if you go back to that check station thing that we were talking about, I remember I can remember this plain as day. We took a doe in. It was my first deer. I was 14. We took it to Fetla's Trading Post in Valparaiso, Indiana. That's where we would go. And they had a big drive-through scale. So you drive your truck through and they'd hook your deer up to the scale and they'd weigh it right there. There was chili and they were selling sodas and whatever. And there would be 100 people there on opening night. And I do remember how many guys came over and slapped me on the back and said, congratulations.
Yep.
I also remember the 2 or 3 that came over and just peered over the edge and just walked away. Like there was nothing special about that deer. And I've carried that for, a long time now, recognizing that. So I never, ever would do that to a kid. I always go over and make sure to really, give a rah-rah to the kid with the smaller buck or the
heck yes.
And shout out to Bradley down there in the holler. He shot a spike this year. Amanda said, this is what happens when you let him go by himself. And I said, then you did a great job, Mom, because he took the deer he wanted to take and he did it by himself and he's excited. I want to go back to one more thing you said about social media has supplanted the check station. It has, but not apples to apples. Because
Correct.
if you say some of the things at the check station that you say online to other people,
you'd hit the dirt quicker than the bullet hitting a deer.
You'd be a bloody mess, mess. Like my uncles, I know where I grew up, people were quick to throw down and man, you wouldn't, and that's a just an example of really the world in a much bigger picture. The things that you say now, you would never say in person. Like, could you imagine if those people in those chats and forums had to say that to an entire group of people standing in a parking lot? It would just be nothing but constant brawls, man. Like,
somebody called me a beta bitch on one of our reels because I was complaining about how the comment section was bad for my mental health. And I was like, dude, I'm 6'8", almost 300 pounds. I'm like the biggest bitch you've ever seen before in your life.
And that's exactly it. Like that dude's probably,
he would have been looking at my belly button. That would have been
right.
so fun to see that interaction in real life. Have him come up and be like, "You're a beta bitch." I'm like, "Are you okay?"
You look like a WWE wrestler, So exactly, that's my exact point. Yeah.
Well, let me ask you all this: are you seeing? I mean, I'm seeing it, but are you all seeing where there's a group or an age class of people who want to get into deer hunting now because I guess the draw that social media has. I mean, I do believe that there's some positives that come from it. I think that there's people that are wanting to get into hunting because they're seeing so many people do it. Um, I mean, where are you all at? Because there's a lot of kids that I talk to, both that I have in class and outside in the community. And man, they say all the time they want to go hunt. They just don't have anybody to take them. Or I see
Nailed it.
people that are our age and
Hmm.
they're just like, man, I would love to go hunt, but I don't even know how to start. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again. If a person wants to go bowling or play golf, they can rent clubs. There's a place that they can go pay to do it. I don't I don't know if hunting's that easy. I think that's why fishing wins. It you know, 40, $50, man. You can have a pole, a tackle box, and there's plenty of access to places to go, and you can normally pretty much have a fish within the first 15 minutes. It's hunting's a little bit bigger.
Yeah, I
So
can't remember the
where are you all
statistic,
at?
but it's something like 95% of hunters fish, but
Mhm,
only like 20% of fishermen hunt. It is so much harder to get into hunting.
mhm,
I rarely ever, if I get to a point where I'm willing to ask somebody, "Hey, would you ever want to go hunting?" For
mhm,
example, my older daughter's boyfriend right now. Love
mhm,
this kid. Kansas City, you know, never really been exposed to the outdoors other than some national parks and doing some hikes. 100% in on going hunting. Wants to do
mhm.
it, wants to understand it. Comes to my house, has probably not seen many deer heads on the wall, comes to my house and just wonders what the hell is wrong with this guy. Like,
It's a
Mhm.
you know,
museum.
yeah, it's
Yep.
and I rarely,
Hmm.
I don't know if ever have I asked somebody, "Would you want to go hunting someday?" and them to
Mhm.
just go, "No, no."
Yeah.
It's usually, I don't know, maybe, or yes, I would love to. I just don't know what to do. How do I do it? And I have taken multiple people.
Mhm.
Mark Walter. I don't know if he ever listens to this, but Mark showed up at the Conservation Federation one time when I was the executive director, and we were a big tent policy organization. And I grew the tent substantially by bringing in groups in agriculture. So I brought in the corn growers, the soybean growers. We brought in agriculture groups, but we also brought in some of the more environmental based groups. And
Mhm.
Mark rolled in there one day with like purple hair and a bunch of earrings and shaved side of his head. And I was like, man,
Huh.
I found the
Huh.
guy that's going to make life hard on me today. And
Mhm.
it couldn't have been any opposite. Shame on me for feeling that
Mhm.
way. I did at the time. And we're talking 15 years ago or close to at this point. But long story short, I took that dude hunting and now he hunts all the time. He's become
Mhm.
like a serious hunter, and
Mhm.
and that just feels good. Like I can
Yeah.
point to that and be like, I did a good
Mhm.
thing for somebody. And
Yep.
kids today, though, man, it goes back to some of those earlier conversations we were having. I do think so much of the glory in hunting is derived from the grit that you gain over time.
Mhm.
Um, I'm guilty. I'm very guilty of being a modern parent taking kids hunting. I
Mhm.
I rushed my older daughter into it. She killed a turkey at 7. It hurt her
Mhm.
shoulder. She cried. It wasn't a great experience. She didn't want to hunt again until she was about 14. Then she killed another turkey. And
Mhm.
so she's been on 2 turkey hunts and killed 2 turkeys. My
She's
older
doing all right.
daughter, my older daughter's been on 1 turkey hunt and killed a turkey. She's been on 1 deer hunt and killed a deer. It's like I take them out and then it's kind of like, okay, shoot that one.
Yep.
And it's what they're willing to give me though. They don't really
Mhm.
want to go out in the woods and hang tree stands with me as much as I would like and things like
Mhm.
that. I take what I can get. I'm very grateful for their time and
Mhm.
wanting to spend some with dad, but I think there's so much competition for these kids' time today.
I've
Um,
mentored thousands and taken
mhm.
hundreds of people hunting, and the best tool that I've had has been my own daughter. Exactly what you're talking about. Um, she's had phenomenal hunts because she's got somebody just like you that is putting in the time, put her in a I'm not going to say a target rich environment, but the deck has been stacked, right? I mean, we want the odds to go in their favor. And I've seen too where she's developed on where things, the weather, the population's not been as good, and she appreciates the hunt now. Um, but yeah, I've got one of my really good friends. He traveled over to West Virginia to bow hunt this weekend, and like his son went to the mountains with his girlfriend, and that really bothered him. And I was like, man, not everybody takes it as serious as we do. Like we've talked about
Right.
this earlier in this conversation. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and it let them do it how they want to do it. They may end up maybe just being gun hunters a little bit later on down the road, or just opening weekend or weekend warriors. But it's more important that they do it and not just say, I used to do it. I have not done it for 20 years. And when you were talking about the different chick stations and, sitting around and drinking, soda and people putting hands on your back and congratulating you. I think more now than I ever have on every sunrise and every sunset when I'm in the woods, and all of the miles and the hours I have on the road and so much windshield time. I remember the first deer that I ever took out of the woods was not with a Honda. It wasn't with a Polaris. It wasn't with a Can-Am. It was with a cedar pole that was cut, and it had rope
Tied the
on it.
legs together and drug and carried him out upside
And
down.
everybody went in to
Yeah.
get the deer out
Yeah.
with the people. And there was no hiding pins. There was no, I got to get in there and track it myself. I mean, there was nothing secretive about it at all, because it was such a fellowship to go and get the deer out of the holler, right?
Well,
You didn't have to have a
and-
deer
and-
cart, and you didn't have to have a $30,000 ATV.
And another big thing is that deer did not have a name. You didn't have trail camera pictures
No.
of that deer. You didn't feel ownership of that deer. And right there, man, that's another huge issue that we're facing. So I went from, I don't know if you know the cabin story, but I had a cabin burned down in the Ozarks when I turned people in for poaching. It's,
Oh, wow.
I mean, it's a pretty big story. You can check it out, like look it up. But I mean, when I say cabin, it was a pretty nice place. And Shags was there. We turned some people in for poaching after years of taking it. So they burned my house down for that. So then I move up here and buy 40 acres. And now I've got the opposite. I've got a guy who thinks he's like, John Dutton of Howard County, Missouri. He's cut brush down and pushed it up against the fence to block deer from coming onto my property. Lauren killed a deer here, her second buck ever, a 10-pointer, probably 130, 135-inch 3-year-old deer, the kind of deer that if it were left to live for 7 or 8 years could have been a monster, but that's not the reality that we live in. Like only a select few do that. That deer crossed the fence from his property to ours. Lauren shot it, her third buck ever, and he just went on a diatribe of you mother effer this and fuck this and you and blah, screaming it like an absolute crazy person. And now you've got a woman just getting started in hunting. He thinks he's screaming at me. He doesn't know who shot it. Right. But, to keep the peace, he's like, well, I don't like this blind that you built because we can see it from our house. So I took it down. He pushed more brush up against the fence. Well, he would chase deer with a side-by-side. He told a mutual friend that he didn't know was a mutual friend, that I guess is more my friend than his, because he came to me and told me, like, your neighbor said he's not going to hunt anymore. He's just going to spend all of his time ruining your hunting. So I asked my neighbor about it. And he didn't deny it, but he also didn't fess up. But he's still pushing brush up against my fence. So then I took down the stand that she shot that from, put a redneck blind about 100 yards off the fence. There's only one stand left on a fence that he now has 2 stands on, and I have 1 stand on. But now he parks his side-by-side behind my stand, so I can't hunt there. It's like he is so determined to ruin my hunting because I might shoot one of his deer.
Mm,
And it's like, I just want to buy a billboard of the North American model of wildlife conservation and the basic tenet of it, that wildlife belongs to us all, and
mhm.
make him read it every day. But
Yep.
this ownership of deer, this, like, that's why so many people are against the non-residents. So many people that own businesses that probably make money off these non-residents coming to hunt in our state are like, F them people, because
Mhm,
they might shoot my deer that I've got a picture of, and I named him Popeye, so he's mine now. And it's
mhm,
not some jackwad from some other state coming in here that doesn't have a picture of him. And
mhm,
it's just like, man, that's the stuff that just eats my soul, because it should be what you're talking about, where we all gather together. And that's what we
when
were building down at Driftwood Acres. Like, we were hunting public land, we were all helping each other out, like we were all doing the same thing. And that's why I loved it so much. And then, you get up here and everybody's on 40 or 60 or 120, but
mhm,
it's like, got to do everything I can to not let somebody else get that deer.
mhm.
And I
No, it's
just,
when you share that info, people like Shag that just go hunting. I mean, that's you're doing the right thing, Shag.
I'm trying.
And and it you can have all the trail cameras and all the stands, and all the food plots in the world, but deer are gonna browse, they're gonna rut, they're gonna be controlled in some shape, form, or fashion by disease and predators, and man can have such an influence on creating better habitat and trying to make things better. But man, Mother Nature is so powerful. Deer are all species, really, man. When you look into how they'll thrive or what they'll do, I do believe they were here a lot longer before we were, and I do believe that they'll probably last a lot longer than we will because for multiple reasons. But yeah, those hit list, and I think about that too. Like it's been a phenomenal. I've enjoyed listening to you because I don't say my deer. I never called deer like, well, I've got a nice 3.5-year-old or what. People used to say, man, it was a big. That's it. The weight thing that was always a big
yeah,
deal. Weighing deer was a big deal, and man, just a big wide 8-pointer. Man, just a really heavy horned 8-pointer, really tall. No one ever said that they were. You know, uh, a 3-year-old or 4-year-old. No one ever called it a G1, a G2. No one ever
none of that, man.
worried about any of that stuff, and no one had a pose, to add a deer, 20 or 30 inches. Big deer, man, when people killed them, when the horns were coming up over the bed of the truck, you didn't have to turn or pose or push that thing out anywhere. It was just a big deer, right?
Well,
And then that little button buck that a kid would kill, that thing that could have been the biggest trophy in the world to that young man. But I hope in so many ways we get back to hunting and what hunting is all about, and it's no different than fishing. I take it Shag fishes a ton, and I love fishing too. It's like sometimes when you get on the water, whether you're in a drift boat or you're just out there wading in the stream or you're out there in a fancy fiberglass boat, the dew's coming up off the lake or sunrise in a deer stand or tracking a deer, the leaf litter and the colors of the fall. I mean, those are, man, those are the big things. Those are the really important things. It's really not the CWD. It's really not the donating of the deer. It's really not, um, whether you killed it with a crossbow or vertical bow. It's like, but what are you taking away from the hunt? Like, what's it doing for you? You know,
yeah.
and that's I do believe that there's more people out there hunting for the right reasons. I just think what's kind of happened with the image of deer hunting, especially and waterfowl hunting, is we've let the smallest percent of the population make us think that that's what the majority of the population is in the sport, and it's not.
Yeah, the vocal minority. That's
Mhm.
very, very well said. Before we get out of here, Shags, I know you're teasing the mystery bait bucket. I said at the beginning that I was suffering a little bit, and I shot a buck this morning. And I've been going hard for the last couple of weeks. You get up every day, I've been getting up at 4 o'clock and getting all the way back to the back of this 400-acre piece of property to hunt in these bottoms. And I've had this vision in my head of how a bow hunt would go down. And finally it did. And you talk about like all the work, all the food plots that I planted, the habitat work that I've done. I cleared trails in this is like a 30-acre section of a 400-acre property. And it came to be. And it's a hunt that I'll never forget no matter what happens tomorrow, but they came from the wrong direction. They weren't supposed to come from behind me, but they came from behind me. But like you just said, Scott, it's the rut. And it was a buck and a hot doe. I think it was her fawn and a spike in tow. He was following along to see what could happen. And I thought right off the bat that doe was going to drag that buck right by me at 20 yards. And I was worried she was going to hit my wind before he would get to where I could shoot him. But for whatever reason, she turned, kind of went out into the field. Scott, I know you work with a lot of products. I don't promote many products, but one that I have used, and again, I get it, the CWD stuff, deer pee, but I've used Tink 69 my whole life, and I've got some synthetic Tink 69. This wasn't, to be honest, just the good old fashioned stuff in this aerosol can, but I laid down a scent line and they hit that with my wind blowing on them. And I'm not one of those like pulling my clothes out of a vacuum sealed bag type of guys. I just play the wind, and they came through that wind and she drug that buck back into the woods. And now I got her broadside at 30 yards, and I've got photos of them, videos of them. This is going on for like 15 minutes. So I'm keeping track of it. And it was so like back and forth. Is it going to happen? Nope, not going to happen. Dang. Oh, wait, it might happen. They're coming back. Oh, no. Yo, wait. Yep. And it was just this roller coaster for like 15 minutes. It's under 30 degrees out. It's pretty calm. It was just the most beautiful experience. Then a little buck came in, and this dude throws his ears back, bristles up, and comes out of the brush that he'd been in and starts going towards that buck. And I give him the old meh, stopped him. And I had so much time. And in a golf reference, Shags, we're always telling ourselves, keep your eye on the ball, keep your eye on the ball, keep your eye on the ball. Like before hitting, I kept telling myself, follow through. Like I had enough time to like mentally walk myself through this shot. It was 42 yards. And man, I felt like it was perfect. I followed through. I watched it sail. It thump, like it just sounded right. He did the bucked up, tucked his tail, went off. I sat there for 1 hour, got down, really good blood, started following it. I'm actually making a little video for my game and fish deal, thinking I'll share it, when I find the buck. And I get up about 100 yards. And at that point I said, okay, he's going up a hill. I don't like this. I want to get above this ridge. If he's not laying there, I'm going to back out. And I get above that ridge and he's standing about 75 yards away. So I got a video of it. You can see his shoulder. I must have hit him a little bit forward. I'm thinking I hit him maybe like dead center as far as like vertical, but a little bit to the left. It's already gone to David Westmoreland. He's the guy I said is the greatest deer hunter I've ever met. Jason Sumner's, Jason Isabel, our MDC director, our MDC deer biologist. Everyone concurs that it's lung blood, but Lauren and I grid searched. So I backed out. I stayed out for 5.5 hours. So I went back 6.5 hours later, really believing he was just going to be laying, bedded up another 100, 150 yards down because he never spooked. It was real windy. I was real quiet getting in there. I didn't do anything that would have alarmed him. Isabel said, I don't even know if he knew you were there. And I was like, he did, because I found his bed and where I'm videoing him was about 25 yards further from his bed. So he had gotten up and started hobbling that way. He goes up this little hill across the log behind a big tree, and that's where my video ends. So when I see him, I start taking a video with my phone. I get up there and it's a true fork. There's two trails that go that way, and he stood there, pulled the old Robert Frost on me, and dropped a few droplets of blood at the tip of that fork, and that's it. Nothing after that.
Drone.
So yeah, if you can get one
Drone.
up here, they're like $500, man. Yeah, we're gonna have to throw a GoFundMe together real quick before I want to buy one, but
The thermal drone
they're amazing.
is, and I hate that you're going through what you're going through, and it's something that all of us, as especially archery hunters, go through. And I hope one or two things. I hope you find your deer,
or he's still alive.
I hope that he can pull it off and get through it. And man, oh man, how that's changed everything that we've talked about on this program.
Yeah.
And when the dogs and the drones come in, you start realizing how many deer hunters are facing what you're going through right now. It's unbelievable.
Oh, for sure. I did call a guy about a dog, wasn't available tonight. I got a big meeting tomorrow, but I got a couple hours. I'll be in the woods before you can see. I've let a lot of deer lay overnight and found them.
How are the buzzards over in your area? Around here, those
hopefully
buzzards
active around 7:00 tomorrow morning. I thought the same thing, if they're in there, it's a very distinct draw that he's headed. Well, there's two ways he could have gone. He could have continued going up, but when he comes around the tree, he's facing down. So I want to believe that he went down and got to the bottom of this deep draw that he was in, and is just moving up that draw. I went about 350 yards total from where I shot him, and then we just circled that. It was about a 30-acre area. Looked under every blowdown, next to every log. It's real thick in there.
What's your penetration broadhead? Let's rewind a little bit.
I haven't found the arrow, but it's clearly not in him in the video. So what I think happened and what the Jasons concurred on was it's probably broke off in him. So I think, I got him front shoulder into the lung. The blood is very bright red. I think it's clearly lung blood. Both the Jasons agree.
One lung hit high is what you're thinking.
That's what I'm thinking. And I think that I shoot Thunderhead 125s, and Westmoreland told me, get with the program, man. And he's right. I didn't like the early expandables, but I've never gone back. I've been shooting these Thunderheads my whole life. They kill deer, but I would much rather have a 3-inch cutting diameter than an 1 1/4, which is what I threw through them.
Big bucks though, big mature deer are just a totally different beast, and shoulders are shoulders. I think that you would be, me personally, I think you'd be in the same boat if you had a mechanical or a smaller fixed blade. I mean, everybody can kind of argue that, and on the weight, and there is just a certain area of a deer that you hit and it creates a little bit of heartbreak.
So I think the arrow
I
think the arrow probably snapped when he was running through some brush, and it just flung, and I can't find the part that's out of him. I have no idea on the penetration. When we're off here, I'll text you a few photos. I'd love your opinion on what I got going on, but no, it's the worst feeling in the world. I mean, I have to sit here all night. It's been cold all day, thankfully it's going to get real hot this weekend, unfortunately, but it's been cold enough that the meat still might be good tomorrow morning if he didn't die.
With your background and the podcast platform, there is, with the types of work that we all do, there is ways in which you can help companies and not sell your soul to the devil, right?
Oh,
you
for sure.
Make it educational. I would definitely reach out to one of my conservation officers or somebody in the department that would have access to a thermal drone before even pushing in there tomorrow. Um, and see if you could write an article or see if you could do a podcast or something
Yeah.
where you can make this an educational piece. Because that, to me, that's absolutely where you're at right now. No matter
Yeah.
if I see pictures or not, is the thermal drone. And then, you're back to your grid search and jumping in and digging.
Well, I told Lauren tonight, I said, I don't care what it takes as far as saving this year, but we're going to have a thermal drone before next year.
Yeah.
Two e-bikes, like that's my golf bro addition to my hunting regimen is I want an e-bike, which is crazy because I was at a hunt in Illinois with the Roach brothers when they broke out the prototype of the Quiet Cat, which was like a 2 wheels in the back. It looked like a scooter from like the 80s that you would have pushed yourself down the street on, but it had 2 wheels in the back and one in the front. And I thought, this is the dumbest thing I ever saw. Like, nobody's going to use this. And then it evolved. Like those two dudes, the Roach brothers, they created like the hunting e-bike industry. And I didn't go to ATA last year, but I went the year before. And e-bikes have replaced coolers. It's like what used to be 10 cooler companies is now 10 e-bike companies.
Yeah.
But I'm sold, man. On that hunt this morning, so there's a big long hill down to the field that I'm hunting an inside corner that's amazing. It's 2 different funnels in one. And I've always parked at the top of this hill and walked in probably the last 500 yards. But I did that last time I hunted there a few days ago, and it was so crunchy that I tried something new. I turned my 4-wheeler off and put it in neutral and pushed it over the lip of this and just rode it down on the brake. And those tires rolled over the leaves so much quieter than stepping on them. When I got to the bottom and parked, I jumped a deer from about 10 yards away and then slipped in there. So anyways, yeah, I hear you. I'm with you on the drones. Just say a little prayer for me tonight. I'll get back in there in the morning. And like you said, there's only 2 outcomes that I can hope for is either made it or I'm going to find them. So
Yeah.
I do have a drone, not a thermal. I'm going to throw it up and cover some fields, but I don't think he's dead in a field. I think he's dead curled up next to a log or under like some blow down brush.
Yeah. No, we'll jump on and record something another time because all that entry and exit and what you think bothers deer and what you think's best for deer. I'm still evolving and learning myself as a hunter. There's things that I do now I would have never done 25 years ago. And it's amazing what you can kind of get away with and how you can become a better hunter if you'll adapt and modify and stick to the basics and the foundations, the fundamentals. It's there's so much stuff that you're talking about those e-bikes, and I'm sitting here thinking about entry and exit to stands, and how we track deer and how we go in and scout. And, golly, what we can do with hunting today. I don't know what you're going to do in your gear review or whatever, but man, there's more gadgets and techniques out there than you could cover if you did a 2-hour podcast every day of the whole year.
Well, we haven't done a 2-hour one in a while.
It's
This
been a while.
Be amazing. Shags is going to turn into a pumpkin though if we don't let him get out of here.
It's getting way past my bedtime doing that morning radio show. But Scott, what do you see here in front of you is an actual antique bait bucket. We got the Midway Antique Mall, and we like to wrap up every podcast with what we call the mystery bait bucket question, which are questions submitted by you, people that listen to the podcast. And very rarely does it have anything to do with the outdoors. Sometimes it does. But if you have a question that you'd like us to answer at the end of a podcast, you can email us, info@driftwoodoutdoors.com. You can also send us a direct message on Facebook or Instagram, Driftwood Outdoors, or just leave a comment on the YouTube channel, Driftwood Outdoors TV. This one comes, it is a little something to do with the outdoors. Rodney Wells, what's your favorite sound in nature?
Man,
turkey gobbling. It's hard to beat. That one. That might be it for me. The turkey gobble.
Mine's right there with the turkeys gobbling, but it's got to be the whippoorwill before the turkeys start gobbling. I
Yeah.
mean, there's just something about those mornings and whippoorwills with the water running through the stream, and man, spring creepers and
So that,
turkey season's where it's at, man. Well,
I
that's
always
just
say if God made me in charge, we'd have 10 Octobers and 2 Aprils because I got to
yeah,
hear them turkeys gobble.
that's right.
because I'm kind of with you on that, Scott. Just being the fisherman that I am, and especially loving to fish, running rivers and small creeks, it's just kind of the sound of the river going through the rocks. Just so soothing. It's almost meditative, where you can get lost in your own thoughts and through the cast. But if we're talking animals, I mean, there's just something about hearing an elk bugle in the wild that just hits you in your soul. Just that it's pretty incredible. So I'd have to say a running river and an elk bugle are my two favorite sounds out in nature.
One thing
Very
about
good.
it, if you spend enough time in the outdoors, you're going to find more than one sound that brings you peace and happiness.
Yeah, that's the truth. So do we got a final cast of the pod? Final thought?
Oh man, this has been great. Lauren said you should know Scott, and I said get him on the podcast, and she was right. You've got a lot of amazing stuff going on. Or 2 hours. I think we could have gone 10. We'll definitely have to do this again. We didn't even hardly touch on the things you're doing in the industry and the
Right.
radio work that you do, and so much more. But it is wonderful to run into kindred spirits. Sometimes Shags and I have to take our lumps for being vocal on the side of what I would just say is real common sense about who deer hunters are, and people get caught in their own silos. They get on social media and they get in these small groups where they all say the same things and they kick people out if they don't agree, and that's not the real world, folks. Like, there are a lot of reasons why people deer hunt, and your reason isn't the only reason. There are people that do it for a lot of reasons different than you. Just be grateful that we all have that privilege, and that's what it is. It's a privilege that's bestowed upon us by our fellow citizens. We have to be good stewards of that privilege, or it can be taken away. I don't care what you're saying right now. If you want to slam your feet down and say it's a God-given right, well, it's not. I mean, maybe it should be, but the way the government works, it's not. It's a privilege. So honor and respect it, and we'll get to keep it.
Yeah, I don't know what you're
No doubt.
talking about, dude. I really like being called a bootlicking woke lib beta bitch on social.
Yeah. Yeah. No, we get called a lot of things. So
I'll close on this for your deer hunters. I think we're close enough that this advice may help them. This seems to be a very strange rut, but I think the best of our rut hunting is yet to come. And I will say that I think if a person gets through their rut and they're really trying to concentrate on killing a big deer, our late season, for the folks that put the time, energy, and effort into good browse, or if they do some habitat work with food plots, I think it's going to pay off for them in a big way. But reset yourself if you don't have a great big one to go after, and go shoot some does and have a good time, and try to get somebody out there that would enjoy the opportunity to go and hunt with you. If you're tired of seeing what you think is an old coal buck every night on your food plot, or comes through that little funnel every morning, just pass it on and share it with somebody who will enjoy it. And if you find yourself ever at a point where you're not enjoying being in the outdoors and you're not enjoying your time hunting and fishing, then the problem's you, not the outdoors.
no
Amen.
doubt.
That's a great one to end on. Scott, really appreciate you, man. Great to meet you. Yeah, we should make a trip down there, Brandon. All of us hang out. This has been a really cool conversation. And
You're always welcome, but I'll trade you for a Missouri turkey.
well, there we go. Springtime. Let's do it. Gear review
Well,
coming up next. All right, Brandon, into the podcast, the beginning of a gear review. What are you reviewing for us today?
Well, don't get too excited when I start taking clothes off, Shags, but I'm going to start unbuttoning this shirt here.
I'm surprised
And
it
show
took you this
you
long.
I got it. I got the Sims Grateful Dead collab
No
t-shirt.
way.
There it is. Got the Sims logo down there.
Yeah.
Lauren got that for me out at Dakota Angler. Awesome fly shop in Rapid City, South Dakota. Dakota Angler, and yeah, I got it. I tried on like 3 or 4 different ones, but this is the one I settled on. So I think we talked about this on podcasts a while ago,
Yeah.
but they had the hats, the sweatshirts, and this is the one I picked. So
Dude.
I'm excited to have it.
That's too cool. Well, mine, I got to give a shout out to our good friend and fellow guest, Joe Hawkins. He got me as a wedding gift for Savannah and I a little taste of home. He got me a Pendleton Crater Lake collection blanket. And these blankets don't have a Pendleton blanket. They are so legit, so comfortable. And it comes with like a fancy little man purse almost handle. So I can toss it over my shoulder and take it anywhere. So I can't wait to. I'm just going to put it in the truck in case there's ever an emergency because these things are some of the warmest blankets you can find. But just thank you so much to Joe. Appreciate you getting that and missed you at the wedding, buddy.
Man, they are Joe and they're just great gift givers.
They are.
They are just great gift givers. So, all right. Well, Scott, thank you very much. When you get off here, I'll text you some photos. I need some more advice. We'll see you
Sounds
down
good.
we'll see you
All
down
right.
the trail.
All right. See you, buddy. See you, Shaq.